Good morning, everyone. Welcome to BlackLogic. There is so much going on in the world. I have a couple of news stories for you guys, but I am going to do a breakdown of my thoughts, hypothetically, of a World War III. We're going to talk briefly about World War I and World War II, but I definitely want to give you guys a breakdown of my hypothetical of how World War III may come to be, which I believe nobody wants except those warmongers and those who may benefit from war, like certain businesses and industries that I won't get into with this particular video. But nonetheless, let's jump right into your news update because we have quite a few for you guys, not too many. Because as we're looking at this, Trump, he's entering towards war with Iran, possibly deploying bunker buster bombs to hit a lot of those hardened nuclear targets like Fordow that's has been fortified or in mountains or some sort of base that's been reinforced. And Israel just launched over 60 fighter jets in a brutal strike on Iran's nuclear sites while Iran hit back, injuring dozens in Beersheba. Now, meanwhile, the National Guard floods into LA, not for disaster relief, but for immigration enforcement under Trump's executive hammer, because Trump has now got the approval by the appeals court to keep those National Guards in place. And then lastly, we're going to talk about Trump's Border Czar, Tom Homan. He just confirmed that ICE raiding farms, restaurants, and hotels are not slowing down, but they're actually ramping up. So again, what you guys first see on your screens here is that President Trump has announced he will decide within 2 weeks. President Trump will decide within 2 weeks whether the U.S. will back Israel with military strikes on Iran's nuclear sites, emphasizing there is still a substantial chance for diplomacy. Now, the report suggests that the U.S. could deploy bunker buster bombs against hardened targets like the Fordow enrichment facility. And Trump's decision deadline seems deliberate, potentially leveraging diplomatic pressure on Tehran. Now, Tehran officials will be meeting with the EU, just so you guys are aware of these particular talks that will be going on. Because European ministers, including European ministers from the UK, France, and Germany, they met with Iran to within the Geneva Convention to discuss nuclear curbs and de-escalation of the current crisis that's going on in the region. Israel reportedly struck a nuclear facility near Iraq using over 60 fighter jets. And the Ayatollah confirmed infrastructure damage, and Iran launched missile attacks on Beersheba, injuring dozens of Israelites in the region. Now, of course, oil prices fell 2%, but now they're seeming to ease briefly amid hopes for diplomatic progress. Now, what's important about this? My MOS in the United States Army was CBRN. Chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear specialists. And if hitting these nuclear facilities, if they damage certain centrifuges, if they're dealing with nuclear rods, do you know the fallout of nuclear waste and nuclear radiation that could emit from a lot of these facilities that could harm a lot of people within the region and deem those areas unlivable for 30, 40, 50 years. So again, I understand they are enriching uranium, but they are having talks within the European Union, within certain conclaves of NATO about they're not trying to make nuclear bombs. Is there a better way? Or we simply can't trust the Ayatollah. We simply can't trust Iran. We can't trust their supreme leader because he's saying death to America. We can't trust him because of some of the very dangerous words that the supreme leader of Iran is speaking, but at the same time stating that the state, the region, the country of Iran are not making nuclear weapons. Can we trust them? Or is Iran, which we've already deemed and labeled a terrorist state, but every Iranian are not terrorists? So again, are the majority of people from Iran, are there just regular people like you and I, or majority of people from Iran terrorists? I would like to believe the first, that majority of them are just regular people living their lives, and that their governments are making decisions, they're making actions and moves that don't coincide with what the people want for their country. Sounds like America in some regards. And I'm not trying to state that what they're doing is not the right thing. I'm just stating how they're going about it needs to be a little more diplomatic, and it needs to be a little more peaceful, so to speak. Because again, President Trump, he's stating within 2 weeks, he's going to decide if we're going to join in and start to bomb Iran. And basically what we're saying, we're going to war with Iran. That's what this is about. A federal appeals court ruled that President Trump can keep the California National Guard deployed in LA to support federal deportation operations, because again, they're now under federal jurisdiction. Despite lack of consultation with Governor Newsom, which President Trump believes he's incompetent, the ruling noted evidence that protests had interfered with federal enforcement efforts, and Trump hailed it via Truth Social as a big win, suggesting this may set a precedent for similar diplomacies in other cities. So now that Trump has the backing of the appeals courts and federal judges alike, he's now keeping National Guard troops in place in LA to protect federal assets, federal buildings, and also ICE agents as well. Now, I tend not to do this, but this gentleman here, National Guard, you got to stay ready, brother. You got to stay ready. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna say any ill will things about him. He's serving his country. I take my hat off to him, to anyone who's wore the same uniform with the same mission of protecting America at all costs. But when you're in the National Guard, they can just call you up at any time in any place, and you have to stay ready. I'm just looking at his physical appearance. He doesn't seem as though he's physically fit to chase down or detain anyone that doesn't take less than a minute. And I'm not trying to be facetious. I'm just giving my personal account. I'm still hitting the gym each and every day. Now, Border Czar Tom Homan confirmed that worksite raids will continue at farms, restaurants, and hotels, even after a brief industry pause. Now, Homan emphasized priority will be given to individuals with criminal records, but worksite enforcement remains ongoing. The pause was perceived by businesses as a hopeful shift, but ICE quickly doubled down on that rhetoric. Now, after initial lobbying from agriculture and hospitality sectors, the Trump administration briefly paused and resumed enforcement. And that's what you're seeing right here, right now, leaving many industry leaders frustrated that they can no longer hold on to and retain a lot of the illegal immigrants that they were paying under the table and a decreased wage, because an American citizen will at least want minimum wage. Well, here's the thing that was going on in the region. America, we are involved in so many conflicts, skirmishes, battles, situations. We either be in Syria, Yemen, Russia, Ukraine, Pakistan, India, Persia, aka Iran, Israel, Hamas. We're in Somalia. We're in so many conflicts and those skirmishes. I think it's only right to give you guys this next segment here, because I think this is very, very important. They said it would never happen again. They said the world had learned from the carnage, the bloodshed, the genocides, and the nuclear nightmares. But here we are again on the brink of World War III. History is not a straight line, folks. It's a circle. And right now, we're closing the loop. As I stated many, many times before, that me personally dubbed President Trump as a peace president. But it seems as though that he's deciding in the next 2 weeks, will America go to war with Iran? America has almost been at war or some sort of conflict and or battle with almost every Middle Eastern country, with the exceptions of Qatar, Saudi Arabia, but I believe that we got in some small skirmishes with them before we became allies. I could be mistaken. Jordan. But other than that, I really don't see where we've done any of those. We have not been in some sort of conflict with these other groups. But I digress. Because World War I wasn't called that in the beginning. It was called the Great War. The war to end all wars. That was World War I. Because a gunshot lit a fuse that blew up empires. We're talking about Austria, Hungary, the Ottomans, the Imperial Russia. 20 million people died because the world was drunk on nationalism and military alliances. And the aftermath were broken treaties, starving nations, and the psychological birth of fascism. And from those ashes rose World War II. See, Germany, humiliated by the Treaty of Versailles, rearmed under Hitler, and Japan set its sights on the Pacific. Italy chased colonial dreams, and the Allies, America, Britain, the Soviet Union, fought to crush the Axis power. It was total war. Cities were flattened. 6 million Jews exterminated. Hiroshima and Nagasaki introduced a terrifying new power called nuclear annihilation. We dropped 2 bombs on Japan, on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But nonetheless, United States, we came out on top. The dollar replaced the pound in the global markets. The eagle replaced the lion as the world symbol of freedom. America became the king of the hill, and for 80 years, it ruled with an iron fist wrapped in a velvet glove. From World War I to World War II. From World War I to World War II, we came out on top. Where are we now? But the world keeps spinning, and now we're here. And now we are here. A possible World War III. And folks, let me tell you, I personally do not want a World War III. I do not want any more wars or conflicts or battles. I want the world to flourish. I want the world to be prosperous. I want America to be prosperous. And again, there's certain activities that America is involved with so we can have stability in America, because stability in other nations is their economy is being stabilized, will reduce the amount of terrorism, will reduce the amount of people who are trying to leave that country and overpopulate America. So again, a World War III, I'm not fighting for. A World War III, I am not hinting towards. But that is what all of these things I'm about to list to you guys could end up being. Because right now, America is in more conflicts than ever before. Back in Israel in a bloody war against Hamas, secretly or overtly posturing with Israel against Iran, propping up Ukraine in a grueling fight with Russia, holding military positions in Syria and Iraq, launching drone strikes in Yemen and Somalia, playing watchdog in Sudan, watching genocide unfold, facing cyber attacks from global adversaries on a daily basis, conducting freedom of navigation ops in the South China Sea while China builds a military fortress, preparing for all-out war if Taiwan gets invaded. This isn't peacetime. This isn't stability. This is only the prelude. Because what does World War III really looks like? If there is a World War III, it won't look like Normandy or Iwo Jima. It would not look like Normandy or Iwo Jima. It would not look like those two. It starts fast, sudden, and brutal. Iran might strike a U.S. base. That's what Iran may do. They may strike a U.S. base like Ayodhya or in Qatar or al-Assad in Iraq, pulling us into a regional war that involves Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen alike. And simultaneously, China invades Taiwan. U.S. forces stationed in Okinawa, Guam, and the Philippines scramble, but Beijing's army is already across the strait. We still have troops in Okinawa. I was stationed there. We still have troops in Guam. We have a very light, strategic, not a military force, maybe a remnants of residue, maybe a couple of strategists in the region of the Philippines. But our president is not as strong after they decommissioned Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines. Japan and South Korea prepare for fallout with North Korea begins lobbying missiles to exploit this chaos. And then at the same time, Russia sees its window. Ukraine is the appetizer. Maybe the Baltics are next, rather. Because right now, I think Russia is playing a very strategic war with Ukraine. These are my thoughts. I believe that wholeheartedly. I think that Russia could easily topple Ukraine, but they're being very strategic about how they're going about to destroy or increase their land mass, because they already took over Crimea, which was part of Russia prior to the Soviet Union joining. And then even though Ukraine was one of the founding fathers of the Soviet Union, they allowed Gorbachev to be the Soviet Union's leader. But now they want to have nothing to do with Russia. And in these regards, if Ukraine is the appetizer for Russia, and then maybe the Baltics are next, and you know what, NATO is going to hesitate like they always do, and then NATO will splinter. Because then you have Poland, Germany, and the UK. They will try to hold the line. But America is tied up across two oceans. America is tied up across two oceans. The cyber front explodes. Wall Street goes dark. ATMs freeze. Power grids fail. Hospitals, airports, military bases all go offline. This isn't war with soldiers and tanks. This is war in the cloud, in space, in the seas, across the skies, all at one time. We keep talking about the cloud. We keep talking about space. I wonder if people are our allies or are they freeloaders? Now, sure, we have allies. NATO is strong on paper. Japan and South Korea host tens of thousands of our troops. I was stationed in Korea for 4 years. I was stationed in Japan for a year and a half. Australia talks tough all the time, even in their news media. India plays both sides. They're friends with China and they're friends with America. As a matter of fact, we have a large East Indian population in America. But let's tell the truth. Most of them rely on us to do the bleeding when we're talking about these countries. Most of them rely on American blood, American foots on the ground to do most of the bleeding. America provides the bombs, the satellites, the bases, the carriers, the drones, and the troops. Meanwhile, Europe has outscored its defense to U.S. taxpayer dollars. And while we fund their security, they hoard their cash and energy deals. And if we fall, if we get stretched too thin, nukes on high alert, troops in every atmosphere, they will not save us. They'll just fight to replace us. Now, what happens if America breaks? I don't know if anybody ever thought that America is too strong, America is too powerful, America is too this, America is too that. Absolutely not. When we look at all the great empires, they have all been conquered. All the great empires have been conquered and or they have failed. Shaka Zulu, strong, talented. He had a bunch of warriors. They eventually got conquered. Hitler eventually got conquered. Genghis Khan, Kublai Khan, they both got conquered. When we look at all of the sects of different wars, Rome got conquered. They thought that Rome was too big to fail. They used to have a term, if you ever read Greek mythology, of course you're going to read Greek and Rome and a lot of those countries within the region, but they used to have a term called all roads lead to Rome. And Rome is in Italy, of course, but all roads lead to Rome because Rome was this massive empire. But some of the same things I studied when researching how Rome fell lines up with America. Rome had their hand almost in every conflict and war in their region. They were stretching their national budget too thin to assisting all these other different countries, as if America does not, we do as well. We started to get involved, and Rome started getting involved in a lot of conflicts and battles to conquer and seize land, just as well as America is. So again, the only thing I'm seeing here, possibly, is the fall of one of the greatest empires to ever be formed. And I don't want that to happen. Because what happens if America breaks? Because this war wouldn't just threaten lives, it would redefine global power, will it not? China wants the U.S. out of the Pacific permanently. Russia wants to reconstruct the Soviet empire. Iran wants dominance over the Middle East and revenge for every assassination and sanction we've dished out. The supreme leader of Iran says death to America. Why is that? Is it because America involves ourselves in affairs with that in the region, but we state that we have global interests, that this is for the security of America? And granted, I'm not stating this is false. I'm just asking the question here. Could we be stretching ourselves too thin? And if we falter, other countries, Turkey, Brazil, even South Africa, step forward to claim leadership in a post-American world. Global finance collapses, food riots erupt, oil hits $300 a barrel. Gas has already risen. We see the fluctuation of the volatile gas market. Gas is $3, $4 a barrel. A gallon rather. Nuclear weapons hang in the balance because all of these people, all of these world powers have nuclear capabilities or nuclear bombs. The world could break, or worse, it could reset without America on top. Why do you think that everybody wants to come to America? Oh, it's the opportunities. Some may even argue that the reason why all these different people want to come to America is because they will not build in their own country. I want you guys to think about one thing when it comes to illegal immigration. A lot of illegal immigrants from the different many countries from around the world that comes to America, they state that they come here for opportunities for a better way of living. But when they come here, they tell Americans that we work harder than you. We're going to do the jobs that you guys don't want to do. And that has never been a thing in America. We've always had people that look like me to do those jobs. And believe it or not, we never complained about how hard the work was. So we understand that there is a replacement, or there was a replacement in place. That the Democratic Party, and not just Joe Biden, but the Democratic Party for a very long time have been trying to replace Black people as the workforce in America when it comes to those blue collar jobs. And they have succeeded. You guys have seen the many TikTok videos and YouTube videos of people from certain regions, even East Indians as well as Hispanics, saying how racist or discriminatory they were towards Black Americans, or how certain incentives were given to them so they can topple the Black workforce in America and be replaced. This is not conjecture. This is not rhetoric. This is the truth. Ask some of your friends from other races and demographics and see if you can drill down to the truth. What would America look like if World War III were to happen? Our military is very powerful, but could our military be overcommitted? I've been to Japan, Africa, Korea. I've been all over the world. We are everywhere, but that means we could end up being nowhere when it really counts. Any military can be stretched too thin. The truth is, we don't just need truth, we need clarity. We need to ask certain things. Why are we in a dozen conflicts simultaneously? Who's really benefiting from our foreign policy other than business owners and politicians? And if we go to war, are we ready for the fact that there may not be a winner? See, World War I, winner. World War II, winner. World War III, it may not be any winners. Because World War III wouldn't be a war to win. It would be a war to survive. So ask yourself some questions. If the missiles fly, if Taiwan burns, if Tel Aviv is flattened, if Ukraine fails, if China cuts the internet, if cyber attacks shut down your bank, your hospital, your power, what's next? Who stands? Who falls? And will America still be the superpower that we all know and love? At least I love America. Or just the last empire to die on its throne? And believe me when I tell you this isn't fear mongering. This is preparation. The storm is forming, and only the aware will survive. So that's why I believe that it's very imperative that we speak out to our political officials and let them know that the American people do not want to go to war with Iran, that the American people do not want to go to war with China, that the American people don't want to go to war with anyone that is not going to war with us. Well, what about our allies? If your friends get into a fight, now, I've seen many of fights in my day growing up in Southeast DC. I've seen smaller guys beat bigger guys and bigger guys beat smaller guys and guys of equal size fight against one another. And we understand that Iran is a much bigger and powerful nation than Israel. Now, Israel has one of the most world-renowned intelligence agencies by the Mossad. But when it comes to the military prowess of equipment and people on ground, I would like to believe that Iran outnumbers that tenfold, especially just looking at the human capital that Iran has. We're talking about 90 to 92 million people versus 9 million people, 9.5 million people when it comes to Israel. But currently, Israel is in a two-headed war between Hamas in the region of Palestine and Gaza, and now with Iran. And Iran said they will not surrender. So now we have a country stating that they're going to basically fight to the death. America, we have already been in a bloody war in Iraq. We've already been in a bloody war with Afghanistan. We've been in a bloody war with a lot of Middle Eastern countries. And could we ever say, and again, this holds weight for me. Could we ever say that we won any of these wars in these Middle Eastern countries? Or do we have evidence and proof that not only were we at a standstill, not only did we retrograde, but thousands of Americans have lost their loved ones, sons and daughters, mothers and fathers, uncles and aunts. So when President Trump makes his decision in 2 weeks, and we're going to get into this conflict with Israel, I have only one message for the president. I want you to just think about what you stated to us. Not that I voted for you, but I do vote for some of the things that you spoke about. America first.